Hello, class. Good day to everyone. Welcome to my classroom vlog. So today I will be discussing the Footnote to Youth, one of the famous literary pieces here in the Philippines, written by Jose Garcia Villa. So the overview of this presentation would contain the following. These are the things that are expected of you. First, at the end of this presentation, you would be able to identify the elements of the story. Next, evaluate the theme of the story. Uh, Also, you can critique the literary piece by answering critical questions and hopefully to embody the good characteristics found among the characters of the story. And for my assessment, you can share your personal thoughts about the story, and you can do this during our consultation or online discussion. And you need to answer the critical questions that would be posted on our social platform. Now, this literature was written by our famous Filipino writer and poet, Jose Garcia Villa. He's a national artist for literature since 1973. And these are some of his works. He was famous, known for the Dove Guyon. He is also known as the comma poet. He was the finest contemporary poet regardless of race and language. He also introduced the reversal consonants in comma poems. And some of his works were Many Voices, Have Come, Here, and The Anchored Angel. So, to start off, I will be summarizing the story for you and I will narrate it so that you would be able to understand. But I would highly encourage you to please read the whole text so that you would appreciate it more. Now, let's start. Dudong is a 17-year-old young man who is impatiently waiting for his father to return home so that he can tell him of his love for Teang and his desire to marry her. He feels that at 17, he is a grown man and is ready for the next important step in his life. When he tells his father that he was asked Teang to marry him and wants his blessing, there is a long and cruel silence coming from the father. His father asks if he must marry her because Dudong is very young. Dudong resents his father's question, and finally his father gives his consent. So in this case, Dudong, a 17-year-old young man, was very impatient to marry someone named Teang, and he admires Teang, and he realized that he wants to marry her to the extent that he has to confront with his father just to ask for his consent. His father actually had a remorse of him marrying Taeyang at a young age, but eventually his father gives his personal consent. Next, 9 months later, Dudong is waiting outside while Taeyang gives birth to their first son, named Blas. He feels young and inexperienced, a contrast to how he felt 9 months ago. Dudong did not want any more children, but they came anyway. For the next 6 years, Taeyang gave birth for seven total kids. So imagine how difficult it would be for Dudong and even for Taeyang as the wife to take care of these seven children. um, Dudong feels young and at the same time inexperienced. I would say that because he is very young, and one of the factors that contributes to making it difficult for his life, making his life difficult rather, is being inexperienced. And age is one factor because since you're still young, why not explore more? Why not um, explore the world first, and that's my take on this. Taeang did not complain. However, her body was now shapeless and thin from bearing so many children and from that hard work of caring for them and the household. Even though she loved Dudong, she cried and wished that she had not married so young. So I'd say that there's a regret here that she married at the young age, and at the same time, she married Dudong, who is also young. But despite these circumstances, she still loves Dudong. Next, there had been another suitor named Lucio who was 9 years older than Dudong. She chose Dudong because she was so much younger. Lucio had married after she married Dudong. However, he was childless. She wonders if she had married Lucio, would she be childless too? She feels that would have been a better lot in life, but she loves Dudong anyway. So even though life has made her old and ugly. So I guess there's another character here, Lucio, and it flashbacks a memory that there's one suitor she had named Lucio, and he imagined, what if I married Lucio? Will I be childless too? So at some point, she was grateful that she loved Dudong, and um, they bore 7 children. One night, Dudong goes outside and thinks about his life. He wants to have the wisdom to know why life does not fulfill huge dreams. Why did life forsake you after love? He never finds the answer. So I'd say there's a personal or interpersonal conflict going on here. He's questioning why life does not fulfill huge dreams. When Blas turns 18, he comes home and tells Dudong that he wants to marry Tena. Dudong at this time is only 36 years old, but he is portrayed as a much older man. Dudong does not want Blas to marry so young. So the next generation, the generation of Blas, did the same thing. Blas asked Dudong to marry Tena. However, in this case, Dudong was um, adamant not to marry, um, not to have marriage at the young age. He asks the same question his father asked him. Does Blas have to marry Tana? He does not want him to marry the same mistake he did, but also reacts with resentment. Dudong realizes that he is dealing with youth and love, and they will triumph over this situation. After that, comes real life. He gives his consent, feeling sad and sorry for his son. So it's the same thing what happened in the past also happened in the generation of Blas. After summarizing and narrating the short story, we'll now proceed to the elements. The story actually happened in the farm, and that is the setting. Who are the characters? There are four, namely Dudong, Teang, Blas, and Tena. Dudong is the 17-year-old young man who became the father of Blas, and a father or a husband with Teang. Tena, on the other hand, was the one whom Blas would like to marry at the young age too. What's the point of view of the story? It's a third person point of view, so there are named characters. So it's omniscient point of view of Dodong, Teang, Blas, and Tena with the help of the writer's narration. Okay, so what's the plot? In the exposition or introduction part, Dudong was fully decided to marry Teang and intended to tell it to his father. The conflicts were Teang regretted to be married at their early age, and Dudong has a question that he can't answer, and this is a interpersonal conflict. Why lie forsaken after love? The climax, when Blas was at his 18 years of age, he asked permission to his father Dudong to marry Tena, and how the story ended was Dudong was helpless. He couldn't do anything but to give his consent. Dudong was really feel sad and sorry for his son. So questions. What is footnote in the first place? A footnote is simply defined as a note at the foot of the page or the Word document. It is often used to give additional information to the reader regarding certain words or phrases in the text. Um, I think you're familiar with this. You would usually see this at the bottom part of scholarly articles, and that is to give more information about some citations or in-text citation, and other important information in the text which needs more emphasis. What is the predominant element in the story? Is it plot, theme, character, and or setting? Please explain. I would say that the predominant element in the story is the setting, which is the farm, and it really frames the story that in a farm community, this is what happens in there. That people at a young age marry someone and eventually realize, had regrets first and realized that they shouldn't done um, marrying uh, people at the early age. At the same time, characters, the role of the characters, such as the father, the son, and the wife, also makes up the whole story. No? Who tells the story? What point of view is used and explained? So, as to reiterate, it was a third-person point of view, or we call it omniscient. And the writer tells the story, and there are point of views coming from different characters, such as Dudong as initially a child who becomes a father, Blas, Tana, and Teang. Can you find any examples of figurative language? Cite them from the selection. So I have identified two figurative language. First is personification. Um, so just to cite a script to as an example of personification, a short colorless worm marched blindly to Dudong's foot. Another linguistic figurative language is hyperbole, like youth must be dreamfully sweet, dreamfully sweet. So there's exaggeration. Now, what are the critical questions that you have to answer? So here are the following critical questions. First, what is or what are the themes in the story? I did not explicitly reveal the theme because I'd like you to unpack the themes of the story. So you can do a thematic analysis here. Second, what sort of conflict confronts the leading character, the characters? Explain. And to follow up, how is the conflict resolved? And I guess this was mentioned in my lecture. Is this story realistic or true to life? Explain your answers by giving examples. Identify yourself with any of the characters. For example, do you identify yourself as Dudong? Why? Next, does the story contain a single effect or impression for the reader? If so, what are the effects or what's the impression? 6. Name one major personality trait of each leading character and tell how the author makes the reader conscious of its trait. Finally, does the story have a moral? If not, what do you think is the purpose of the author? So these are the critical questions that you have to answer. and you would be seeing these critical questions posted on our social media, our grade platform. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you learned something from this discussion. If you have questions, you can comment. Um, you can comment on our social media, and you can also ask questions during our consultation hours. Thank you so much, and God bless.